In today's recap, we will be looking at the anime, The Eminence in Shadow. An alarm wakes Nishino, prompting her to get ready for school. As she opens the door to leave, a flashback of hungry reporters lurking outside to get the scoop takes her breath away for a moment. She quickly gains her composure when her chauffeur calls to her. She enters the car. As they leave, it is apparent that she comes from a wealthy family. Unbeknownst to them, a van also prowls in a hidden place, monitoring their movement. Nishino's arrival at school seems to be an event on its own, as all the students stop in their tracks to watch her. Her classmates begin to greet her good morning as she responds with that PR smile. Her mood changes for a moment when she meets Kageno at the building's entrance. She despises the poor lad. He is below average academically, athletically, but just average when it comes to looks. She puts on her fake smile as she greets him good morning. He's been sitting next to her for the past 3 months in class and still pronounces her name wrong consistently. But the main reason she dislikes him is because he's so distant. In class, everyone gathers around Nishino to discuss her leading role in an upcoming drama airing, as she is a famous actress. Meanwhile, Kageno sits alone with wrist weights under his uniform as he counts his over 20,000 reps on his grip trainer. At lunch, while alone in the bathroom, Nishino thinks back to the scandal that made her take a break from show business during her middle school years. This traumatic event has led her hide behind a mask, making sure she's loved by everyone. Because of her busy schedule, she sometimes stays back for makeup lessons. Coincidentally, on one such day, Kageno was also asked to remain in order to tally up the answers for a school survey. Night falls and Nishino finishes her lesson, so she calls her chauffeur to alert him. But he's unable to pick because he's been ambushed by the people in the suspicious van. After waiting a while, she decides to walk home alone, but she is a little on edge as it's the first time she has walked home since the incident. She gets a bit startled when she hears some footsteps, but is relieved to see no one there. When she turns to carry on her journey home, the actress is blocked by the chauffeur's attackers and kidnapped. Just as she passes out, she sees Kageno in the shadows calmly watching. Nishino wakes up bound and gagged in an abandoned building. Her kidnappers alert her to be a good girl and sit tight. A ransom note has been sent to her dad. As soon as they get the money, she will be free. The kidnappers point out that her father has a lot of enemies, insinuating a hit. The criminals begin to argue about revealing too much information, while Kageno uses his phone screen as a mirror to get a glimpse on the situation inside. After doing so, he removes his wrist weights like Rock Lee did against Gaara, then proceeds to unzip his school bag, revealing some vigilante equipment. Back inside, one of the kidnappers gets bored, so begins harassing the actress. Kageno drops down from the building skylight in style before things get out of hand. He introduces himself as the stylish ruffian Slayer. The harasser pulls out a gun to shoot him, but he counters by throwing a shard of glass at his hand, making him drop the weapon. As he stumbles back from the pain, Kageno closes the distance and tackles him to the floor. He then knocks him out with a heavy stamp to the head. The remaining kidnapper is impressed with Kageno's fighting level, so he drops his gun in favor for a knife in order to test his skills against the stylish ruffian Slayer. He reveals that he's an ex-army personnel and was getting bored with these kiddie abductions, which didn't give him the opportunity to let loose. Kageno also gets excited since he has always wanted to fight a military man. He attacks with his knife and cuts him a little. Stylish ruffian Slayer blocks his subsequent attacks with his dual-wield crowbar. He first uses them like tonfa batons to disarm the military man, but kidnapper man uses his greater power to knock him back with a flurry of punches. Kageno changes his grip by using the crowbar-like club to attack, giving him the immediate upper hand. He confesses to have had a lot of practice beating biker gangs with this method. The military man realizes that stylish ruffian Slayer was a joke name. Kageno is actually the infamous balaclava berserker. He rushes for his gun, but Kageno blocks him and beats him mercilessly with the crowbar. After subduing the kidnappers, he frees Nishino and calls the police to the location before disappearing. Her rich and powerful dad made a few phone calls to prevent the incident from becoming public knowledge. The following day, Nishino goes to school like nothing happened, wearing that smile. She meets Kageno at the building entrance, and for the first time he gets her name right, to her surprise. She also noticed that he's more present, which makes her finally see that he too was living his life behind a mask. But she never had the opportunity to investigate him further. That night, Kageno has a manic episode, hitting his head while shouting magic before finding himself in front of a truck. That went from 0 to 100 real quick. While in limbo, he reviews the life he lived up to that point. He dedicated his life to the martial arts in order to be strong, but he wanted to be a background character with the ultimate goal of being the hero mastermind in the shadows. He wakes up with his consciousness intact, but he is reincarnated in a new world filled with magical energy as Sid, the son of an aristocrat. He grows to learn that the family has produced dark knights for generations. Knights are fencers that enhance their physical abilities using magic. Everyone has high hope for his older sister Claire, who happens to be the heir of the family. She shows extraordinary talents as a knight. Meanwhile, Sid keeps performing average in his Dark Knight training in order to stay in the background. But at the dead of night he showcases his overwhelming power as he effortlessly dispatches some bandits using a slime sword. He decides to take the criminals' plunder. While rummaging through he comes across a possessed entity, so he takes it along with him. After 1 month of magic experimentation, Sid accidentally reverses the curse, which transforms the hideous blob to a young elf girl. He's initially confused but decides to use this as an opportunity to create his Eminence in shadow persona. When she wakes up, he introduces himself and weaves some fabrications while explaining the situation. He informs her that the cult of Diablos are responsible for her curse, and that their goal is to revive a great demon. He uses this made-up danger to recruit her into his organization Shadow Garden. As his first recruit, he names her Alpha. 3 years have passed since he finessed the lie. He's now 13 and is still keeping his outward development as a knight average. Sid spars with Claire and on the surface, he gets overwhelmed, but he shows glimpse of how he could easily defeat his sister without her knowing. The sparring session comes to an end when she knocks him into a nearby river. One of the housemaids informs her that her mother is calling since their guests are arriving for her farewell party. When nobles turn 15, they attend the Midgar Academy for Dark Knights located in the royal capital. As their family are members of high society and Claire is of age, she prepares to leave after being enrolled at the academy. The night before her departure she is kidnapped by some assailants. Their father concludes that they must be master fighters given his daughter's strength. Their mother demands her to be found. Sid quietly excuses himself and switches to his shadow guise to find the whereabouts of his sister. Over the years Alpha has added more members to Shadow Garden. She is currently searching for clues that would aid in Claire's rescue. Still playing to the cult of Diablos narrative, they suspect them to be the kidnappers. Beta shows him the map of the enemy's hideouts. Sid throws a knife to choose the one his sister is in but misses. Beta is confused at first but plays along. After looking at the evidence it seems like there is a secret hideout at the mistake location he indicated. He orders her to contact the rest of the group because they will execute the rescue that night. Meanwhile at the hideout, Claire has been locked up using sealing magic chains but still manages to evade an attack from Viscount Grease. She explains to her captor that it's her brother that indirectly taught her that a lot can be done with little magic. When the kidnapper threatens to target him next, she loses it and breaks out of her chains, but he manages to knock her out before she can do any damage. One of Grease's subordinates alerts him that intruders have infiltrated their hideout. The 7 members of Shadow Garden are ripping through their ranks. The Viscount can hardly believe it as he rushes to the scene since some of his knights are good enough to be in the Royal Guard. When the girls mention the cult of Diablos, he is surprised they know about it, which hints to its actual existence. Grease engages Alpha in combat and gets easily overwhelmed. He takes a strange pill that increases his power. This allows him to knock Alpha back. He uses the opportunity to escape to the lower level. The girls decide not to pursue him. Alpha reveals that Grease is heading straight to Shadow. The girls think that Shadow anticipated Grease's split from them, when in reality he actually got lost, but with his luck, Grease runs straight into him and they engage in combat. The Viscount is no match for him as he gets overwhelmed to the point that Shadow starts giving him combat lessons mid-flight. An exhausted Grease warns Shadow of the darkness of the world as memories of the events leading to his daughter's death plays in his mind. Shadow smirks before stating he wants all the smoke. The Viscount takes all the pills in the bottle and becomes jacked. He begins to attack like a wild animal, but Shadow dodges calmly before putting him out of his misery. The following day, Claire stumbles back home after breaking out of the chains in a bad mood. By the next morning, her injuries had healed, so she set off to the royal capital like nothing happened. That evening, his 7 shadows alert him that it is time for them to leave him. 2 years have passed since then and a now 15-year-old Sid attends the Midgar Academy. He lives his background character lifestyle, even befriending true-born background characters Skell and Poe. The friends ride the train to school. They are lower-ranked nobles, so they don't have the luxury of staying on campus like the upper-class students. Exceptions are only made for honor students like his sister Claire. Sid has been at the school for 7 months now and he is happy with the way things are going. Skell reminds him of their bet that the guy with the worst score in their recent test has to confess love to Princess Alexia, the most sought-after girl in the school who is notorious for her brutal rejections. Since Sid was the worst performing, he must do it. The guy is actually excited to do it as it is the kind of background character event he always wanted to experience. Later that evening, Sid gets Alexia alone. While his friends watch, he gives the most background character-like love confession. She reveals that she's been waiting for someone like him. The following day, the school's eyes is now on Sid, the exact opposite of what he wants. The students are dumbfounded as to how such an average guy bagged a princess of the country. Obviously, he has some haters now from the guys that missed out. Things get even more bizarre when Alexia joins them for lunch. Her maid serves the food. Sid tries to use this as an opportunity to get dumped, but she rather asks him to join her Royal Bushin fencing class even though he's in the lowest group. She pulls some strings to get him moved up. The class is led by Mr. Xenon, who happens to be an official royal fencing instructor. Sid practices with the princess and notices how textbook her technique is. At the end of the lesson, the real reason that Alexia decided to accept his proposal becomes apparent when she interacts with the instructor. Mr. Xenon has been betrothed to her, but she wants to rebel against the decision. Dating Sid is a protest. As soon as he understands the situation, he excuses himself, hoping to blend into the background till main character tier event blows over. The couple later meet up to discuss the situation. Sid voices his dislike for attention, so is reluctant to keep up the charade. She confounds him on the fake proposal after squeezing the information from his friends. She tosses a gold coin at him to insinuate that he can be bought by money. Sid tries to play it cool, but her assumption was totally spot on as he turns into an obedient dog. His allowance is not enough to fund his eminence in shadow operations. With his incentive, Sid plays his role well. One evening, the couple go to town for some ice cream because Alexia wants the public to see them together. She reveals that the reason she doesn't like Mr. Xenon is because he doesn't show any flaws, which she finds very strange. But Sid, on the other hand, has plenty flaws that are apparent, which make him more bearable. They date for 2 more weeks, but their fake relationship comes to an end when they have a heated discussion about fencing. The following day, Sid arrives at school a little happy that things can go back to normal in the background. His friends apologize for revealing their bet to Alexia. As they enter the school, Sid is suddenly alerted by Mr. Xenon that the princess didn't return to her dorm room the previous night. The Night Order is investigating a potential kidnapping, and since he was the last person to have contact with her, he is considered a suspect. He surrenders himself for questioning as he notices the knights around him are in combat stance. That brings the episode to an end.